welcome everyone to attend this IDnext Lunchbreak in cooperation with Freo and also Rabobank. My name is Rabobank, founder of IDnext platform, and will be your host of today. Some rules up front. So we do have a great presentation about how Freo is digitizing the world of consumer finance. It will be an interactive presentation, so feel free to ask any questions, but please use the chat mode for asking any questions or just raise your hand. So we will try to answer those questions during the presentation. Still after the presentation, there's also some time there for questions and answers. And we will finish exactly at 1 p.m. And so hopefully we can go through the whole content in this hour. At first, for those who are attending IDnext Lunchbreak for the first time, maybe still unaware about IDnext itself. It already exists for more than 10 years, and the main mission about IDnext is all about sharing knowledge. So the way we are sharing knowledge and expertise is by organizing lunch breaks like these, but also events of other conferences where we are going to bring people together in order to share knowledge and experience. We did organize these lunch breaks because we felt that also there are a lot of topics that we discuss, and it means also in this online seminar we're going to discuss one team, one guest, or we have 3 guests at this moment, and some interesting content itself. If we're talking about IDnext itself, it's an open, independent platform. Main goal is to create awareness about digital identity, but also provide a knowledge and network platform for experts in the different areas. So IT, business, but also especially marketeers. And we do support and facilitate innovative approaches in the world of digital identity. As you may know, or maybe not already know, we also organize our yearly event, which will take place on the 27th and 28th of September, where we also provide a platform for innovative products or services regarding digital identity, where we also have the Identity Innovation Award ceremony that will take place. Submission is still open. You can find more information about IDnext on our website, and feel free to contact me or also Susanne Major for any questions regarding IDnext. So I'm not the main guest today, or not the main topic. That's our Dan, Sandar, and also Chantal. They are going to give a presentation regarding, I think, this really interesting topic. I think, Dan, you will go to start with some introduction where Sandar and Chantal will take it up. So feel free to share your screen and give it a go.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Let me start sharing my screen. Hoping it will open. My name is Daan van Eshoff. I work as a business development manager in a department of Rabobank, which is called B2B Services. We try and hope to provide better customer journeys through digitization and innovation to our customers, which Freo is one of them. So I will only do a short introduction because the stage today is for Chantal and Sander. Just a little on B2B services. We are part of the Rabobank strategy on banking as a service. So we provide services to our customers to help them optimize their journeys, and we combine a few of those services in one department called B2B Services, and we are a payment service provider, just like Molly or Adyen. We do that as a bank. We have our own API marketplace where we do direct integrations with customers, and more through partners, because we see the future in more partnerships with more people. But today's subject is on Rabo Identity Services. So we are a digital identity service provider. We also work together with a Norwegian partner called Signicat on that one. And we see in the combination of these three services that we can help in the digitization of our customers, and especially on identity services. Freo is using a few of those services, which you will see in the presentation of Chantal and Sander. And if there are any questions, little elaboration on the identity services part. We use a platform which you can connect to one API, and in that platform we offer all different kind of services on identification and login for our customers. So we have electronic ID called IDin in the Dutch market, but also the government ID called DigiD. But we also do ID scans of different from different providers. You will see one of them in the presentation of Freo as well. We do some on authentication through email and SMS, and we offer validation services like the check of the Chamber of Commerce and on IBAN numbers, which actually is one of the services Rabobank developed itself and is now a subsidiary of Rabobank, but we offer the service through our platform. And we also have different solutions on digital signing. This is the short introduction from my side. I would like to give the stage to Sander and Chantal, and hopefully we can have a nice lunch break. Enjoy.
Thanks, Dan. I will take over the screen. 1 sec. Let's start with a short introduction who we are. The first slide is for Chantal. Maybe Chantal, you want to introduce yourself, who you are?
Yeah. Yes, I'm Chantal van Kruijsdijk. I'm working at House of Consumer Finance, which is a part of Rabobank, since April last year. This is me and my family. And I have a background in online marketing and conversion rate optimization, usability and innovation. So that's me in short.
Okay, thanks. Now also for me, I'm Sander Janssen. I work now for 6 years for Freo. I'm head of digital, which means that I'm responsible for the squads that deliver our customer journey and our systems. And before that, I had extensive experience in internet agencies working for large corporates and a lot of financial institutions. Well, for this introduction, first I would like to start with a short introduction who Freo is, because I can imagine that not everybody is aware about who we are and what we do. So let me start with that. Freo is an online lender for the Dutch market, and we provide personal loans for consumers, Dutch consumers, who want to renovate their house, who want to buy a car, or maybe they want to consolidate expensive loans which they have elsewhere. And we are 100% subsidiary of the Rabobank. So we are in a legal aspect nothing different from the Rabobank itself, and we are 100% daughter, as you might say. For people who would take a look at our website, we also use it because we have a low brand recognition. The Rabobank has a very high one in the Dutch market. So we also advertise also being part of the big Rabobank in order to enhance our reliability towards our customers. We have a digital-only business model. We have no branches, no offices. The client cannot visit us. And all our applications for loans come to our online channels. And in this marketing approach, our primary USP at this moment is our low interest rate. This is how we want to attract customers. And we achieve this, first of all, of course, by having a cost-effective organization. But moreover, we have a very rigorous credit approval process, which applies a very low risk appetite. And the result of that is that we have a very healthy portfolio of loans. And this very healthy portfolio of loans makes sure that our loan defaults are also very low. And these low loan defaults make sure that we have very little risk costs in our P&L. And this in turn makes sure that we can continue offering these low rates and being successful in this market. Now, over the last 10 years, maybe almost 15 years, Freo now almost exists for 15 years, we have seen a very high growth up until 2019, 2020. And on that point of time, the whole consumer lending market started to shrink a bit. Now, we're also having troubles finding a growth again in the shrinking market, but more about this later. I want to move one slide ahead. And to frame a bit about this online business model, I wanted to show you where these loan applications originate from. And if you look at the pie chart from the sources of our business, then you will see that we have a large part is search engine advertising. Another large part is our comparison websites. Here you can think about Independent, Pricewise, Geld.nl. And also a big part is direct and organic traffic. But we also expect that a part of this direct and organic traffic is generated by those other two. And why is this like this? Now, we said in the beginning, Freo has a relative low brand recognition. And in the past, we did never really invested in name recognition marketing campaigns. And the main reason for this is that from all Dutch consumers, I think we estimated that roughly 18% will ever in their lifetime apply for a personal loan. And of those 18% of Dutch consumers, those consumers are in the market for a personal loan every 3 to 4 years. So if you would invest a lot in brand recognition, you would target a lot of people who are not your potential customer, leading to a lot of waste. And therefore, the last couple of years, we really invested in these 3 channels to generate business. This from a more conceptual point of view. Now, if we take it one step further, I want to take you along a bit in our customer journey and also tell a bit more about our main challenge that we face. And if you look at the customer journey, it all starts with advertising. Of course, as for many businesses, this is true. And in our case, this is mainly Google AdWords, Bing AdWords, the comparison websites. Now, these people, when they click on these ads, they will go to Freo.nl. They will assess our portfolio. They will assess our interest rate and whether or not they like to apply for a loan. Now, you have fallout. You have people who do not convert on the stage, but you also have a ratio that does convert to the loan request. And in this loan request, we have a form where we ask the first personal information about this client, the first basic information about his income, how about his expenses. And here we have a first shift between the people that would eventually be able to apply for a loan and those who cannot apply for a loan because they might have a big registration or they just have too little income for applying for a loan. Then everybody has a personal intake. We make a phone call to every loan request that has been made. And also in this personal intake, we see that we talk to the client and he tells us, I want to use the loan for a business purpose, which means that we have to decline the loan. Also a lot of fallout in this part of the journey. And then finally, you have the credit approval. And also here, a large part, we ask the clients for a lot of documents and a lot of proof of income and expenses. And again, a lot of clients fall out in this process. And to give you a bit of a conceptual view, from all the clients that start with a loan request, only 10 to 20% in the end will turn into a contract. This means that a large part will never make it to a contract. And a major part of this is that because we decline the loan. And then I come to an important part. This last aspect at the moment takes 2 to 6 working days. And this is very inconvenient for the client because the client knows, most clients know that there's a large chance that we will decline the loan. But he is looking for a car. He is making agreements with a house renovator. So he wants as soon as possible to know where he stands. And one of our big strategic goals at the moment is really making this waiting time more shorter. And there we focus on the credit approval process in automating this a large part. Why do we want that? Of course, for the client, we want a better customer experience. It is not really of this time anymore that people have to wait for several days on a no or a yes, even for a product like this. Moreover, we also would like to opening new distribution channels. We only now have an online offer, which is not linked to the product itself. But if we are able to really reduce the time to a yes, to a loan grant, we could also become a part of point of sale processes. For example, being at a sales store for kitchens or being at a car store. Because in those sales processes, it's very important that a yes can be given in very short notice. And finally, and not really less important, we can lower our own internal operational cost if we can automate a very labor-intensive process, which it is at the moment. Now, you would say, okay, how difficult can it be? There are internationally a lot of credit approval processes or a lot of models which you can use. So let's make the model, let's use the client characteristics and make a judgment and rather not approve the loan. But unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. If you look at the Dutch ecosystem, especially with the regulators, you will see that the Dutch consumer finance market is heavily regulated. And this is a concept in which you have the Rabobank, which is our mother. You have Freo at the center. You have on the sides, you have the AFM, which is a big player in the regulation of the consumer finance market. And you have also the Autoriteit Persoonsgegevens. And on the background, you also have the DNB, but they play a less formal role in this process. And on the bottom, you have the Vereniging van Financieringsondernemingen, the VFN, which is a branch organization. And in this context, mainly between the VFN and the AFM, a set of rules have been defined which have to be applied at every loan grant in the Dutch consumer market. So every financial institution in the Dutch market that wants to provide personal loans has to conform these rules. And this is very important that we do this because the AFM says, I rather have to say, the AFM audits this every year. They ask us for a number of files of loans, and they check if we followed the rules correctly. And if we did not, we are most likely fined. And these are really serious fines, let alone the reputational damage for the Rabobank. So this is something we want to prevent at any cost. And the most difficult part about this regulation is that it has been said that for the judgment of the expenses and the income from a client, we have a verification duty. Now, more about this a bit later. When we look at this credit approval process, it consists of a number of steps. It consists of creating a loan offer. This is essentially the quote. How much does the client wants to loan? What is the interest rate? Does he wants to consolidate loans from other places? And this is essentially the offer we can make to a client. Then you have the identification part. This is CDD, KYC. This is very hot in the banking at the moment. We want to identify is the client which he says he is. Then you have the income. And we have to make sure that the income is enough to hold the loan that it is realistic for this client that he has enough income for this loan. And this income is supposed to be steady. So we have to prove that he has a steady income, which is enough for the loan. And I just told you we have a verification duty. So asking the client, how much do you make in a month or a year or whatever, is not enough. We need to show, we have to ask the client for proof. We have to check it. And if the AFM has an audit, we have to prove we have checked it. And this is the proof of that. And moreover, we have internally an MLC calculation. It stands for maximum loan capacity. That's how much does a client actually can he loan. And expenses is also part of that. In these branch agreements, we have said that not only the income is important for this calculation, but also the expenses that our client has. So, for example, we have to take account in living expenses, rent, mortgage, but also child allowances, car expenses. All these expenses have to be checked, have to be asked from the client, and have to be verified. And the next one is morality. This is not something that the regulator really asks us, but this is applying our low risk appetite to our credit approval process so that we can keep this risk cost low. And this morality is a judgment, our side, of how big are the chances that this person eventually will not be able to pay back his loan. And signals where we look for, does this person gamble a lot? Does this person has a lot of time? Is he in debt on his current account? All these kind of rules are applied here. And finally, you have contract signing. We have a contract. This is essentially the quote that has to be signed by us and by the client. And this whole aspect, these are all aspects which we want to automate. Now, if we move a bit closer, creating loan offer, we use here Big Air information. We have a connection with the systems of Big Air. This is also for a very long time. I don't want to delve too much here. This is very common for a lot of years already. But next, to the passport. And this is also one of the slides that Dan has shown. We used one of the servers of the Rabo identity services. And we have a system from Onfido, which we provided by Rabo Identity Services, in which we verify the identification of the client. We use a passport scanner for this, which not only receives all the information from the document, but also checks the document on the validity of it. A bit more about the presentation of Chantal about this aspect. Next, income. We use a tool for this called Octo. And the tool Octo, what it does, it scrapes the government website about the employment past of the employee, of the client, the person that applies for a loan. And in this employment data, we see, okay, he has a steady income, and we also see the amounts that he has received over a number of periods. Now, there's a lot of information, a lot of months, a lot of income statements, and in the bottom you see this clockwork, and this means that we apply a lot of business rules internally to come to one income which we can use for our own maximum loan capacity. Now, using this Octo and this tool, we try to automate this. And the main reason for that, using this Octo tool, is that in the past we received photocopies of income statements that were given by the employer. But photocopies of income statements, we cannot automate those. So we said, okay, we want to move as much as possible to this Octo flow, because in this flow we get data which we can process automatically. The main challenge here is user adoption. More about this in the part of Chantal. Then, for expenses, we have applied PZ2. At this moment, we have PZ2 connections. We developed them themselves with the major Dutch banks. We have ING, Volksbank, ABN AMRO, Rabobank, which we connect to, and we get the transaction history of the specific client for the last 3 months. The good news for us is that at this moment, 80% of our clients use this connection, which is very nice for us, because also in this case, in the past, we got photocopies of income statements, of bank statements, which we cannot automatically process. But this PZ2 data, we can process automatically. And you see there's also this clockwork below. And here we try to identify the expenses automatically in this PZ2 data. But also here we have a number of challenges. Because we use the internal categorization engine that the Rabobank uses, that the Rabobank has developed, but we found out that it is very difficult to identify all categories in the precision that we want to have. For example, For example, we need to check for the mortgage statement in the expense statement of a client, but not all mortgage transactions are the same from all the banks. And an example is a banksparen hypotheek, banksparen mortgage. For a lot of banks, these are withdrawn from the bank statement in two separate transactions, but not all transactions have the word mortgage or have the same counterparty as the other transaction, which makes it very difficult to identify those. And because that the AFM can audit these files and we missed them, we are probably fined. So our main challenge is getting this categorization to a very high level, which we are investing this at this moment very heavily in. But how this work? Now, this is an example of how this works. We take all these pieces, transactions, and we try to apply two factors. We try to apply category and periodicity. And this periodicity, where we like to see, does the transaction have a frequency, weekly, monthly, yearly? Because if you see a transaction return more frequently, it is probably a fixed expense which we have to take account into the maximum loan application. And then you have temporality. Here we build also a factory with all kind of business rules, with checks of all things we want to check on in these PSD2 transactions. And finally, this is also an example of these business rules for the morality factory. We look at the stornos and cassos. We look at gambling. We look at a low ending of the month debit, and we give points to this. And depending on the points that has been given, we move ahead in our automation process. Finally, we have the contract signing, and for this we use IDN signing, and this is very convenient for us because IDN does not only give us the name of the person, but also the address, which is also an important factor in our fraud prevention, because therefore we can use the IDN address to verify if the address that the person has given to us is the same. So this is a nice additional feature for us, which helps us preventing additional fraud. So this all makes it an overview of all the things we need to address in automating our credit approval process. And we have a lot of different challenges here. Chantal will take over and delve more deeply into these challenges.
Yes, thank you, Sander. Well, as Sander said, we are a digital lender, but this is mainly digital on the outside, so to the customers. So, and our goal is to try and achieve straight-through processing, because I think a month ago, every customer and every contract was also still handled by an employee, and all these steps that we are taking to digitize this process will lead us to more straight-through processing. And straight-through processing is also for us on the back end to get the customer through as fast as possible, but also at the front end to make sure that it is a smooth process for our customer. Oh, where did I click? Yes, so to achieve straight-through processing, we had to overcome some challenges because there are a lot of data sources, but also a lot of customer behavior that is very difficult to change. So one of the first steps is the application form. We tried to make sure that the number of questions we ask at the front are as low as possible, to make sure that the conversion rate was as high as possible. But the problem was that we had more questions, So only 5% of our customers received a direct offer when they went through our application process, which is not very high. So we are now changing the offer form, the application form, by adding a lot of more questions. And we tested if it would make more customers skip this process, but that didn't seem to happen. So the first questions are now added, and it already makes 10% of our customers receive a direct offer. But yeah, there's also a lot of percentage to win yet. But in the coming weeks, the last questions are being added, so not every customer has to get a call or fill in another form after this. So we hope that the time to offer will be reduced after that. So that's one of the first steps that we took. Then, the submit a paycheck. When I entered the world of Freo last year, about 96.5% of our customers uploaded their paycheck, which of course didn't help the digitization of our process. So the first thing that we did was make sure that Octo, which is an app that people have to download before they can deliver their paycheck, that was pushed to the customer. And the secondary option was not to use the app, but to upload your paycheck. And that made the use of Octo go from 3.5% to 35%. So that's already a major increase, but we also thought this can be a much better. So then, together with Octo, we implemented deep linking, as it is called. So in the old process, someone had to click on the App Store or Play Store link and download the app, then come back to our environment and continue the process, scan a QR code with the app they just downloaded, and then finish submitting their paycheck. So it was a pretty difficult process for the customer. And with deep linking, we made sure that the customer only has to scan the QR code once. Then the phone checks if you have the app or not. If not, you go to the App Store and download it, and then continue the process in the app. And if you already have the app, you are directly sent to the app and to the right page to finish the process. So with that change, we went from 35% use to 80% use. So that's a big increase, and we are very happy with that, because with these numbers, we can really make big steps in our straight-through processing. Then we also had a challenge for account statement for PSD2. When I started at Freo, someone had to, most of the time people have more than one bank account, especially when you have two contractors. So, and someone had to go through the process time after time. So which made uploading your account statement the much more attractive option, because you had one step to take. You had to upload everything and then go through. So at the beginning, we also already had a 40% use of PSD2, but after our change, I think in August last year, we had customers choose all their banks at once. So if you have more bank accounts at several banks, you can all give them a check. and then go through the PSD2 process, which is promoted as the main option for everyone. So that made the use of PSD2 to go to 85%. So also very happy with that. And then when I arrived at Freo, we didn't use any automatic submit ID option. So the only thing the customer could do was upload pictures of his or her ID. So we started with Onfido, provided by Rabo Identity Services. And at the beginning, when we implemented this, things didn't go as smoothly as we thought. In the past, we also used several OCR tools, but every time we did it, we saw that the automatic approval wasn't as good as we thought. So we thought with Onfido, Rabobank uses it also, and we thought now we have a tool that really works. But in the beginning, it wasn't as good as we thought. About 48% was directly accepted by Onfido as being a good ID. And only 33% was after that accepted by our own system where we store all our application information, which is Lara. But we worked hard over the past months, and after some tweaking, now about 78% is directly accepted by Onfido, and 64% of that is automatically accepted in our system. So this means that for 64% of all our applications, our employee doesn't have to look at the ID anymore. So this is already a big automation of our process. So very, very happy with that. Well, this all sounds great, of course, but there are still more challenges to come. Of course, all those numbers are it can be improved. Every step is one, but we are happy where we are. But we want to improve, of course. I see a hand. Is there a question?
Yeah, I think there's a question from Peter. So Peter.
Yeah, I've got a question about the previous part. Thanks for the information so far. So you said you improved the acceptance of Onfido over the last period. Just for my knowledge, how did you do that? Can you tweak those tools, or how can you get that acceptance rate up?
Well, the problem was with us is that we implemented Fido and we gave Onfido 1 minute to give us the acceptance confirmation, because we thought within a minute Onfido can give us a great acceptance of if the ID card is the ID card and if the person is who he says he is. But after implementation, we noticed that Onfido needs up to 5 minutes on average to give us that automated acceptance. Yeah, but we cannot keep a customer waiting for 5 minutes before they can go through with the process. So we had to change the technique and receive the accept of Onfido under the surface. So the customer can go through with the rest of the documents, and we get the automated accept by Onfido after that. But when a customer finishes his whole application of all the documents, then we close the technical gap to get the acceptance from Onfido. So that's why there is always a gap between customers who use Onfido and the acceptance that they give, because they always have an option that an employee on their side looks at the ID, but that part we do ourselves. So we will always have a part that isn't automatically accepted by Onfido.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that answers the question. Thank you.
All right. Well, always great numbers, but what are more challenges that we see? We of course have our employees. They are used to some kind of used to their way of working, and they see all these digital changes, and they have to adapt their work to the change that we make. So yeah, we got also a lot of feedback from them, from what's happening, why is this changing, how do we cope with it, and what they also wanted was, like with Onfido, was an option that worked from the start for 95% of the time. But yeah, it's an agile way of working, so we try to improve step by step, and that's pretty difficult for our employees. I see another question. Another hand.
No, I think still no hand.
Okay, then I'll continue.
Peter. Or maybe he has another question. No, the hand is gone. So there it is.
Okay. Yeah, and another thing we saw with our employees is that everyone has another way of another way of working in their credit approval. It's very subjective. So when one employee said, "Oh, well, this is a great customer, let's go through," the other one did see some things, and they have a lot of subjective rules that they apply. So that's also what we encountered, and are now trying to make sure that they have one way of working and don't look at too much. But it's pretty difficult because they have always been trained to be very precise and be track every lead that they see, or account for every decision that they make. So so this is also a challenge that we have to overcome. And yeah, of course, at Rabobank as a bank, we have a big big responsibilities, and also our legal department and also LAR, they are very scared that we take too many risks. So they're really on top of everything that we do, and we have to involve them every step of the way, so that they don't push the brakes, as we call it. So that's also a challenge that we still face. And lastly, we use a lot of algorithms, as Sander explained, a lot of engines, and as common as that may be for some businesses, in banks, it's for a lot of people still pretty scary that a computer says yes or no. So in that, we also have a lot of work to do to involve our colleagues and other parties, that the engine is doing what we say that it is doing, and that we also check on a mainly basis that the engine is still working correctly. So that's the end of my part of the presentation. With this, I think, a good ending quote: "The road to success is always under construction." We made a lot of great changes over the last period, and but yeah, there's still a long way to go. Any
Okay.
questions?
Yeah. So thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions? So Willy, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I was wondering, this process you implement when you attract new customers or when you onboard a new customer, how does it also apply to the how do you say, klantzorg, when you have to do a checkup once a year or something like that? Do you also digitize that or not?
Yes, we have, as we call it, a lane check, which we send to customers each year, and then we ask some questions. And if the questions have specific answers, we make sure that they are contacted or go through a specific process. So yeah, we also have that.
Yeah. And maybe in addition to that, for us we are not a bank. We are only a personal lending provider. So we have very little information regarding the behavior of this person. A bank with a current account, he can see where he spends his money, if there might be financial problems looming. We do not have that information. So we are very reliant on the signals that the client itself gives us.
And is that sufficient for the AFM?
It is, but it is mostly sufficient because we have shown that we can have a really low early and low return defaults because of a rigorous credit approval process.
Yeah.
And the very few cases that really get into trouble for our company, in mostly of the cases, they are able to find us and to contact us, and we can make arrangements with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have sound.
Yes.
I just used the Zoom option the previous session. Thank you for the presentation. I see the choice of OCR. Nowadays you have Read ID and other NFC. Are you looking also for that option, or is it just the desktop option you use for the OCR?
Well, with the problem is with NFC is that you need an app.
Yes.
So the struggles that we had
phone.
with the
Yeah.
Octo app
Yeah.
as a separate app, and then we needed another separate app. So we thought, let's just take the first step to digitization and use OCR, because that's also the way of working of our employees, to check pictures of the identity and the passport. So that was the easiest step for us now. And Rabobank uses both. So they have NFC as the first primary option, but everything there goes through the Rabobank app. So and we also have a Freo app, but it's not as commonly used, of course, as Rabobank.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I do have one, and it's more about the chain that you are using, because I imagine there are several steps in the process you have to take in order to provide your service. That also means that it will be also, from a governance perspective, important to also manage the chain to make sure that it will work with each other. And I can imagine if you are making improvements in those chains, you need to take into account that there are maybe dependencies within those processes and make sure it will work. How do you cope with this from a service perspective?
Go ahead.
Who's going to answer?
Ladies first.
Well, yeah, we have in our customer journey, we have several teams that are working on parts of the customer journey.
Yeah.
The one that I'm a product owner of is for onboarding. So mainly the part where customers send us their documents, and also the whole service part when they are a customer. And we try to work as closely as we can with all the other teams. And all of the teams report to Sander, so he keeps the main view that the processes are all aligned. So
And I think also an important factor there is that we have compartmentalized our system and components, so that we do not have one big ball of string where you pull on one end, the whole ball starts moving, but we have compartments which reduce the risk of regression over the entire customer journey. And especially for our more deeper systems, the process system and our contact system, we invested heavily in automated testing. And that really has paid off. If I now think back at a few years ago when we released, we had a new release of our system, it was always, okay, it was not the question if a problem would arise, but where. Yeah. Since we have invested in all this automated testing, and these are all fired each day after each development release on the systems, we really improved on stability on that aspect. So in hindsight, I'm very glad with all these efforts in these automated test scripts.
Okay, great. Not sure. I thought Daan was going to answer something, but it's not correct.
No, I was solving the quarrel between Sander and Chantal that ladies go first in answering.
Yeah. And it's also possible, and maybe for other people also interesting to know, give insight in, let's say, future enhancements. Where are the things that you would like to develop more, where you also, because I expect that you also try to gain information from customers, their experience, things they would like to improve. Can you give me a little more maybe insight in what's going to be next enhancements where you think that will also improve the customer journey?
Yeah, I can think of a few. One aspect is that we now ask a client what he would like to loan and what our basic information are, like what income and expenses are, and then we're going to check this with PZ2 and Octo and all this kind of data. And one thing that we are thinking about is turning this concept around. That we start asking the PZ2 information and the Octo information, and then saying to the client, this is possible with your set of information, instead of first asking and then checking it. But this is really a big change for a whole landscape, so we need to prepare that carefully. Another one is also that we came a long way with automating the technical aspects of our journey. And what we see now is that we also have to look at ourselves, our internal process, our own risk approval policy, and reduce the number of exceptions that we allow to go through our organization. Because we see that we now handle in the manual process a lot of exceptions. People that have some different kind of income, or have maybe have several divorces with houses and stuff like that. You can never automate that. And we're now also internally having discussion, what are we do with these cases? Are we going to invest in the automation, which is nearly impossible? Are going to skip those? What are we going to do with those?
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot automate it, what's not standardized. No.
And I think you would like to standardize as much as possible, but you still have some exceptions that you would like to keep
but some cases. Yes, but some cases cannot be standardized, and are we willing to lose that business?
Yeah.
And I think also the future of identity management is also that now we get everything from the customer, we process it, and we store it somewhere. But I think the future is that all customer data stays with the customer, and we only ask some questions in, is your income high enough? Please give us a yes or no. Are you who you say you are? Give us a yes or no. But yeah, that requires also a different view from the AFM, because they do not approve of that way of working yet. And there are already a lot of tools available to make sure that the customer keeps his identity himself. So
I think that's very, very correct here, because we handle and process a lot of personal information about his clients, really a lot of information, but it's not something that we want to do. We only need the outcome.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the same, Chantal, and maybe in addition to that, in the way to that, we'd say end state, you see the combination of services and the availability of using different flows. Arthur mentioned Read ID, so can you combine an app situation on the web flow, and can you keep your legacy systems in place? That's and from a perspective as a platform for identity, we always look for new services. So we see a future in different services like the IBAN name check, but you can use other sources as well. And at the same time, I think more European-based solutions could be available as well on the new EU regulations, which I see some opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think there aren't any questions anymore. So I would like to thank you, Dan, Sander, and also Chantal for your presentation. We come to the end of the IDnext lunch break, so would like to thank you all for attending this lunch break. I found it rather interesting. This lunch break will be also published online somewhere next week, available for you to look back, but also other people who were not able to attend. Keep an eye on our website, idnext.eu, for other events or lunch breaks. And wish you all a good day and hope to see you in another event. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye.